Business Takeout presents The Takeout Effect with Banki. The Takeout Effect brings real conversations in business.
Welcome to The Takeout Effect. The Takeout Effect brings real conversations in business. I'm your host, and my name is Banki. The Takeout Effect is brought to you by Business Takeout. Business Takeout is a nonprofit social enterprise whose mission is to increase Black wealth and empower. Today's guest has been recognized by the Women Executive Network as one of the most powerful women in Canada. She's also an executive director for Frontlines and also the founder of BrAIDS for AIDS. She is an expert at grant writing, a consultant, speaker, facilitator, and so much more. Welcome, Stachen Lett-Frederick. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly.
You sure are. Thanks for having me.
Great. We have so much to talk about today. I want to know about your journey. Also, business tips for anyone that wants to do what you're doing. Learning from your failures. A lot of questions that we want to get to today. But before we do that, let's hear a message from our sponsor. Our sponsor today is Banki Designs. Banki Designs is a branding and design firm that specializes in graphic design, web design, and social media content creation. Let's have a word from our sponsor. Okay, how are you feeling today?
I'm good. I can't complain. That's kind of been my motto for 2020 and 2021. When I think about all my blessings, I really can't complain.
Amazing. I'm so glad to hear that. We're going to start by I'm quoting something that you said. I love what I do and I do what I love. And I'm quoting from an article in 2018 when you were the recipient of the L'Oreal Women of Worth Award. How did you know you want a community activist / entrepreneur?
Well, I don't think that I initially knew that is what I was wanting to do. I always knew that I wanted to work with young people. Whatever that particular career wasn't exactly sure, but I had an idea. At the age of 8, I did, inform my mom when living in Trinidad that I wanted to travel abroad and I wanted to work with young people. I think community activism, community development sort of was that mesh between my interest and my personality. And then it was in true university that I came to learn about community development because I actually was on a path to go on to med school. I had actually gotten a scholarship for chemistry at the University of Ottawa, was going to do med school, specialize in child psychiatry. And that's how I was getting to work with young people in my idea, given that as when, many people know this, when you are a smart person, and especially from an immigrant family, become a doctor, become a lawyer, all those kinds of things. So that was the sort of career path that was sort of trusted upon me, but was able to find community development really sort of meshing, again, my personality
Mm-hmm.
and my interests. And so it was through my experience in Ottawa, understanding racism, understanding the needs of my community, that sort of then led to this sort of community development pathway.
Okay. So, founded in 2008, BrAIDS for AIDS, a nonprofit organization to raise awareness of HIV and to the Afro-Caribbean, to the African, Caribbean, and Black communities in Canada and internationally as well, right? Um, so what I liked about it was just your ability to combine what links us together, regardless of if you're in the African community, Caribbean community, as Black people, braiding our hair.
Yes.
So I love that. I love that. What made you decide to take on this journey?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So while I was in Ottawa, again, I was highly involved in my community. I had won a community development award in Ottawa for my work in sort of mobilizing my community. And so I was approached in regards to a particular job that was doing work around HIV/AIDS within the Black community. And even before being approached to it, and sometimes in life you don't realize how how your life journey has ended you up for this particular place. And I'll share why I'm saying that, and I'll get back to the formation of BrAIDS for AIDS. So recently, I bought a house. I was packing up my old condo, moving into my house, and there was a booklet that I saw that was given to me by a vice principal of my high school. And when I read what she wrote about me, is the exact same individual that you see here today.
Wow.
Back then, I was involved in an HIV/AIDS awareness campaign across Trinidad in the school, at high school. And here I am now, a founder of an organization around HIV AIDS, right? So again, I would say my life journey and my path had this sort of HIV/AIDS piece. So there was something in the back of
Yeah.
my life that was channeling me down this particular path. But again, as I said, came out of university, and because of my work in the community, I was approached about this position. Took the position within a white organization that was given funding to do work within the African, Caribbean, and Black community around HIV/AIDS. And literally, I was hired to be that token Black girl.
Okay.
It wasn't about, my expertise. It was one, let's hire this girl. Let us use this girl because of her connections in the community, but not let us listen to her, and not let us hear the voices of the community that is being brought to us. So it was a very parasitic relationship, a very racist, very
Mm-hmm.
ageist, very sexist place, because I felt that should I be a Black man, I think I would have been heard a little bit more in the organization. So I understood that there were these elements of the different isms. So one day it was, let me, sorry, before I reach to that piece is, I knew that I had to raise funds around HIV/AIDS for my community, so the voices of my community could be heard. I didn't have an actual plan. I didn't go through any sort of brainstorming around naming and what shall I do. It was literally one day sitting down about to get my hair braided, and I saw the word AIDS pop out of the word braids.
Ah.
and that was that sort of eureka sort of moment, that this is the vesicle that I would utilize in order to raise awareness and to draw people together. And rightfully, as you said, this is a practice that brings together so many different people.
Yeah.
And I just want to, while it's BrAIDS Weeds and it's centered around the African, Caribbean, and Black community, but braiding is actually something that's also important in the Aboriginal community. And I should excuse myself in saying that I should have probably done a land acknowledgement, that, being here, that, I am on the lands of Indigenous people, currently here in Toronto, and want to respect the land that I'm on. But we, as a people, as African people of African descent, we also share very similar practices to Aboriginal people. When we look at drumming, that's something that is of a practice. When we look at braiding, and in fact, the braids, there's a braid theory that, the three strands of a braid represents mind, body, and soul. And so every time you twist, that's what you're doing. And so even in that, when you learn about what our how there's something deeply personal within that braiding of that mind, body, and soul, and you hear about how hairdressers are almost like our therapists, is because they are interweaving those mind, body, and soul. So that's how Braids for AIDS sort of started. And it was really my voice to get to respond to the racism, the ageism that I was experiencing, but also my community has experiencing. I know that you had actually interviewed one of my staff before, Monique, and now now that she is more taking on the helm of Braids for AIDS on, the day-to-day operations, I'm of course still involved in the organization. Now Braids for AIDS is a tool for her and her personal stories. And it has always been a place of the personal stories of our people, of how we can overcome some of the injustices. The HIV/AIDS is not just it's not just a disease. You have that whole piece around the social determinants of health that impact our people. Because when you look at poverty, there lies HIV. When you look violence against women, there lies HIV. When you look at lack of education, there lies HIV. When you look at lack of employment, there lies HIV. And so it's HIV is an end result to so many systems and many issues that have not been addressed.
I definitely see that. Just going through just some of the statistics I was able to gather online, there is approximately 37.6 million people across the globe HIV as of the year 2020, right? Also, there's more here. So basically, 51% of people in Ontario, women in Ontario that have been diagnosed with HIV in 2014 and 2015 are from the African, Caribbean, and Black community. Absolutely. So it's really important to really, I love everything that you're doing. So I really think it's important to have, definitely.
Yeah. I just want to add, and that's, I'm so glad that you brought in those stats, because many people think that it is a back home problem. And while we do work, internationally, much of our work is centered here in Canada, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done for our community.
That's true. That's true. And, we're looking at the most vulnerable parts of our community, So you have over 20 years experience in the field of community and program development, right? Braids for AIDS, we mentioned the creative way that you're able to put braids and AIDS and combine the two. You were also in the past able to in programs where you combine art and social work together. Um, and why you see the need to combine the two?
Sure. Sometimes it's very difficult for people to engage in conversations. If it's around mental health is something that is a stigma for many, and many don't talk about it, and such arts is a way that can draw people to an issue, and you can then engage them in these conversations. So for example, at Frontlines, the one of the organizations that I run, we have many different programs that within those programs we utilize the arts to engage young people. So one of them, for example, is called What's on My Plate.
Mm-hmm.
And what's on my plate is a play on word to say what's on my plate as in terms of stress, but also to what's on my plate in terms of cooking. So we
Ah,
we engage them through the cooking, and while they're cooking, we having the conversations around mental health, or when they sit down to have the meal. And so a lot of times even funders will ask me, you know why BrAIDS for AIDS over another sort of organization. And I would say that our clientele is different from the typical individuals that you may see in HIV/AIDS organizations from, let's say, the LGBTQ plus community, because a lot of our people that come to our BrAIDS for AIDS are people who are interested in hair, and then we hook them through the HIV/AIDS conversation. So I just really see arts as a tool to engage. It could be food, it could be painting, it could be hair as art, it could be fashion. It's just something to engage people so that it could reduce some of these barriers for individuals to first uptake and well first intake and uptake knowledge around conversations that may be difficult.
and I love that because the approach is more engaging. It's a creative way to get people involved, and with that, you're able to then connect with them on a deeper level to you know get them to release what's going on, find help, spread awareness, educate. I love all of that.
Yes.
I think it was last month, and correct me if I'm wrong. You announced the station. Sorry, I'm pronouncing it wrong.
That's okay. So the station let's consult.
Yes.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, I have been doing consultancy work for a very long time, and it was just a matter of rebranding. I
Mhm.
also recently got married, and my new name is Let, and so it is a way of playing on the word let. So station let's consult.
Mhm.
All sort of different sort of consultings that I've done with different organizations, the Jean Augustine Center for Young Women's Empowerment, Prince Trust Canada, Gateway for New Canadians, the AIDS Committee of Toronto, whether it's in program development, fundraising, grant writing, community development, the wide works of looking at the social work sector, and providing people with my knowledge. Like nothing is better for me than in being able to pass on my knowledge to others so that they can continue to build their own community, because I'm only one person in this fight, and that's why it's important for me to pass on information. Sometimes people would say, How come you're giving people who are potentially your competitors, the knowledge about how to write grants for their programs? And for me, it is again important, because the work that I'm doing is not because of me, right? But
Mhm.
is of a greater purpose. And so the more soldiers that we have out
Yeah.
train is the better. And I also say that I'm so unique. I don't think that a lot of people have been able to, for example, um, utilize social work and the arts the way I've been able to do. So while I could teach the people the basics of grant writing, they may not come up with the same creative projects and programs like me.
I love that. So, is it only for nonprofits or is it also for profits?
Yeah, no, I've done work for profits, even in grant writing.
Hmm.
Many of well, I should say grant writing coaching. So I don't write grants for individuals. Again, I like to teach people how to write grants. A lot
Okay.
of people are very reluctant. I always like, Station, I just can't do it. And I've had people, Ayana from Soca Size, the founder of Soca Size. I have worked with the founder of ABA Construction. And I've helped these people get grants from very competitive grant processes. So, for example, ABA Hughes just recently, out of 1,400 applications around Canada, they were a successful, grant recipient from the Black Opportunities Fund. Again,
Mm.
Ayana was, a recipient of the BMO Woman's grant of $10,000, and it was simply grant writing coaching. I didn't write the grant for them. They had all the knowledge. It was just simply about helping them unpack what is in their heads, helping to phrase it, and put forward. So I help all, because the whole understanding around my consultancy business is about drawing information about your community. So
Yeah.
it's Station Let's Consult Community. And so, whether you define your community as your staff, whether you define community as your clients, whether you sort of think about your community as your stakeholders, how are you consulting them? How are you getting knowledge from them? And how are you effectively communicating that on grant applications, in your strategic planning, in your branding, in everything of your business? How are you engaging your community?
I love that. I love that community aspect to it, because it speaks to your brand as a community activist. Not
Mm-hmm.
only you're the founder of BrAIDS, you're also the executive director of Frontlines.
Yes, yes.
For everyone who's watching right now, I know it's in the western, North York, Western, right,
Yes,
community.
yes.
It's been around for about 30 years. Can you explain to everyone? Um, Actually, you know what? Before we go into that, I wanted to talk about Frontline. Before we go into that, just to close off your consulting company information, um, apart from grant writing, what other services do you offer to both nonprofit and for-profit companies?
Yeah, so strategic planning, leadership, new product launches. It's really about the operations, all the different aspects of your operations, but one in which you are seeking to utilize your community, again, however you define community, in being able to drive your strategy to launch your product, all of that. So it could be as simple, again, if a business is looking at launching a new product, how are you actually doing market research through your community? And so I can help in terms of some of that
Okay.
work with your community. So it's really at the heart of it. In every single thing that I do, it's about that human interaction and how you're engaging your community.
Amazing. So now going into Frontlines, for those who are watching, let everyone know the charitable foundation. And I'm trying to remember off my head. Sorry. It's really for creating programs for youth in our community. Can you let us know more about what is Frontline?
Yes, sure. Oh, Frontline's my baby. As BrAIDS fades is my baby. So, Frontlines is now an award-winning dynamic youth charity located in York Southwestern, which is one of the poorest ridings, not just here in Toronto, but across Ontario. But when I tell you the young people of the community, they are resilient, they are funny, they are intelligent, and it's really about addressing the pressing needs of the children and youth of Western and surrounding communities, because our organization continues to grow. The vibe of Frontlines continues to grow, and more we're seeing young people coming from all across the GTA to our program. And so in that, my statement just now, I just mentioned what is the mission of the organization, and that mission is simple but large, in that is to address their pressing needs. And that could be whatever it is. So, when you look at a community that has, one of the highest rates of poverty, we all know what comes with poverty. You have things around crime, around mental health, about lack of opportunities, low educational attainment, low employment opportunities. And so we as an organization always look to be responsive to the needs of our young people. So if it's education, making sure that we have tutoring program. When the pandemic hit and there was lockdown, within 2 days we had online tutoring. We had 73 kids sign up in 1 day for programming. So if it's lack of basic needs and food, is ensuring that we are doing culturally relevant foods for our young people, because 99% of our service users, our young people, are Black, and so we have to have food that respond to their needs, and programming that does. So again, if it's employment, we just received $1 million grant, which is to now invest in these young people, give them employment training, connect them with employers. But even before this $1 million grant, that was the philosophy of Frontlines, where we train young people and we even hire them in Frontlines, which makes us very unique from different charities, because we actually hire young people from our community. So it's not like station driving in, doing work, and I'm out of the community. These are the kids who live in the community, the young people, the young adults who live in the community, and they are working in the community. So it becomes so much more personal for them, and ensuring that their voice is heard. We have, as I mentioned, the mental health program called What's on My Plate, to address mental health. We have a program for violence in the line of fire. And so it's really this dynamic space of family. And that's the one thing, when I hear the young people say Frontlines is like home, is important. Like, I know then the work that I'm doing is important. I know the work that my staff are doing are important, because we're making our young people feel loved, which then leads to the vision of the organization, that our communities will be a place where our young people experience safety, true value, and well-being. And so when we hear these young people say things like, I feel at home at Frontlines, I feel like Frontlines is family, we know that we actually achieving our vision of creating that safe space for our youth.
I love it. Definitely. You mentioned COVID in there. And I wanted to ask, how has COVID changed the way you've done business from the business part of things?
Well, I think on various levels, right? So of course, COVID has changed how we run programs for our young people.
Mm-hmm.
So as I mentioned, when the pandemic, when there was the lockdown, we had to switch virtually, but there was
Mm-hmm.
an understanding that participants didn't have access.
Yeah.
Many people didn't have laptops, and even when some the schools was looking at providing laptops, sometimes the laptops didn't work. And we sort of reached out to our network and ensured that there was resources
I
for
understand.
for laptops, for hotspots, to ensure that our young people were engaged in programs. Sometimes we were sending um, supplies to their homes through Amazon, or if it was that we were having a cooking program online, sending Instacart to their homes, right, so that
Mm-hmm.
they could get the ingredients for them to come online to engage in cooking.
That's a good
We
idea.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Like we, as I said, my staff are very again responsive and innovative and creative. I remember a young man who's a staff during the pandemic saying to me that he didn't think that he was doing enough for the young people in his community, and he wanted to do more. And that's the heart of the people at Frontlines, is that want to do more for their community. And I think again it goes back to the importance of the fact that we have people from our community as staff, because it becomes so much more personal for
Yeah.
them. So we did that for a while. We've also had to have hybrid models. So when restrictions were released or relaxed, we were able to have small sort of cohorts of young people. During the pandemic, we also experienced a flood and also a collapse of our roof at our old
Mm-hmm.
facility, and that actually made us move and relocate to a facility three times the size of our old building. But then that now allows us to um, sort of separate the age groups. So now we have a unit for the 6 to 12-year-olds, and now we have a unit for the 13 to 17-year-olds, and now we have a unit for the 18 to 29-year-olds. So that allows us to do some of the social distancing, and
Okay.
to ensure, of course, better sort of regulations. You're able to manage smaller groups better. And of course, all the other things that had to implement in terms of, PPE and all of that. And that so my response there was from a very service user level, but from a sort of management piece and management of staff, that has changed. Now people are working virtually, um,
Mm-hmm.
and so systems have had to change of how
Yeah.
people report their hours. And how do you track performance? Performance is no longer a 9 to 5 thing, but are people meeting their deliverables? So can you move from that sort of perspective? You've had to change how you respond to people taking COVID tests, and and trusting staff around when they say that they're feeling sick, that they are indeed feeling sick. And so has had to shift even people's leadership styles and engagement because of the pandemic.
You mentioned a lot of different things. I think you are the most detailed in terms of that question I usually ask my guests about how COVID has changed the way they've done business. Because you've explained from a user standpoint, from an employer standpoint. I love that because I can relate to different areas of it. The virtual, when your staff said that it says that they're sick, those type of things.
Mhm.
Um, so I wanted to ask you, um, so much I wanted to ask you, but so little time. But what are some business tips for anyone who is a community who has a passion to be a community activist and entrepreneur at the same time?
Yeah. So I would say know your community. That is important. You can't go advocate for people if you don't know your community. So that's important. Understand your uniqueness. Understand what is your value proposition for individuals. Why should individuals engage with you versus the many other organizations that are out there? So what makes you unique, right? Is important. Understand that you would face obstacles, right? But believe in your product, whatever your product, and I say that sort of inverted commas,
Mhm.
because what what we deliver at BrAIDS for AIDS, or what we deliver at Frontlines, is a product. It's a service, or a sort of product. So take the time to genuinely unpack what it is that you're offering community. So many times I get people come to me, and again, is people wanting me to write grants for them, and then they say, well, I want to have a mentoring program. So but there's so many different mentoring programs.
Yeah.
So why would a funder want to fund you over,
Already.
right? Like, because there's so many. Everybody wants to do something for youth. When I do workshops, I do a grant writing workshop. And when I have, sometimes I could have 25 to 50 people, in a grant writing, workshop. And without fail, about 75% of the response that I get, because I do an activity with people around, if I was to give you $100,000 today, what would be a program that you would like to implement within your community? And about 75% of people respond, I want to do something for youth. So if that is the competition, and I do that in inverted commas, because I also see, when you see people having very similar sort of ideas, that's the opportunity for partnership as
Yeah.
well. But let's just take it from the other lens, competition. If these people are potentially your competitors, what makes you different?
Yeah.
What are your program elements that are different? But then also, too, how do you know that your program is going to be successful? And having a clear sort of theory of change, of why, by you doing X, Y, and Z, would lead to particular outcomes for the service users that you have. And so those were just some of my like tips, in regards to when people thinking about, again, community activism, or even in entrepreneurship, because this also applies
Yeah.
for a business. What how is your business going to address the need that the person is looking for, and have it clear and people can see it?
I love it. Advice for corporate sponsorship.
Mm. So um i've I've sat on two ends of the table. One, I have written grants for corporations, and if you go on Frontline's website, or even BrAIDS phase, you will see a number of different corporations that have supported my different sort of initiatives and organizations. So what is key and important for corporations is that they can see that your organization and the particular program that you are offering will help address an issue that is of importance to them, and make it clear. So, one of the things that is usually asked on grant applications or sponsorship applications is how is this program aligned to the corporate's values or area of interest?
That's true.
And so you have to be able to identify, okay, by our program doing X, Y, and Z will help address this issue that is of importance to this funder. So that is one piece. You know, corporations want their logos, they want their branding to be affiliated with an organization that is doing good.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you can show your track record, when I write my proposals, I say to individuals, imagine if somebody was to knock on your door for $1,000, what questions would you ask? And when I break it down like that, people realize, okay, this is really a human interaction, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're knocking on a funder's door, they want to know who you are. Do you have a track record? Because that's how they're going to know if you are credible.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to show that you have been doing this work for a while, and that again you are whether it's your following, right?
Mm-hmm.
We would like to think that we all live in an altruistic world, but the reality is that we don't. And that by giving grant funding to an organization, it's also going to be a benefit for that organization, because that is additional marketing for that corporation. So again, if you could show your following, if you could show your track record, those are things that's important, because then the funder will know that this is going to an organization that, one, is credible, but can, two, help in our marketing strategy.
Amazing. All right. Thank you. Those are some great pointers. I appreciate that. And I hope my audience do also. One last question, then we're going to go to the game. I wanted to touch about the importance of celebrating achievements and milestones. Look at some of your accomplishments. You've been recognized by Black History Ottawa, the High Commission of Trinidad and Tobago, and YMCA Canada. How She Hustles with CBC Toronto, the Black Health Alliance, the Minister of Immigration and Citizenship, L'Oreal Paris Canada, 100 Accomplished Black Women, Women Network, and the Women Executive Network as well. You also been the recipient of scholarships, and also, so the list goes on, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just basically saying, do you celebrate your milestones and accomplishments? And if you do, how do you do that?
I am really not good at celebrating my accomplishments. In fact, yesterday I was driving, and I received a phone call, and I'm on my Bluetooth. Let me put out that I was on my Bluetooth when I answered the call. And my friend called me from Ottawa, and she was screaming on the phone because of this $1 million grant that I received for Frontlines. And that was probably the first time that I actually stopped and said, I am so proud of myself.
Nice.
Yeah, so yes, lots of awards, but the work continues. So sometimes I go to award ceremonies, and then by the end of the night, when I reach home, I'm back to writing a grant, and I'm back to the grind. So I don't really take that time to reflect. Just keep going. I know that the awards provide me with an opportunity, a platform to share more about my work. But that's how I see it, right? Like I've never seen it as like, oh, station have done so well. I really see it as, okay, here's another opportunity to raise awareness about my organizations and the causes. But yesterday I did have that, pat on the shoulder kind of thing, like, yes, girl, yes, you did that. Right? So it was long time coming, but yeah, slowly starting to get into that mode about celebrating
Nice.
myself.
Well, I can say you deserve it. You've
Thank
put in
you.
a lot of work in our community.
Thank you.
To go into a game is called Business Confession.
Mhm.
And basically, I will give you a business scenario, and you will tell me your response, and I will guess if it's a lie or a confession. So the game starts now. Okay. Tell me about a time where you would have made a mistake in a system and process, and you had to correct it.
Oh man, it's so many. As a leader, I have in running my various businesses, I have made a mistake, and I'll probably use this more in terms of like an application.
Mm-hmm.
So I submitted an application, and there was an error in the attachments to the funder, and I basically had to like send an apology to the funder, just saying like, sorry, I made a mistake in this thing. This was the correct file that I needed to send as one of the attachments. So, please, accept my apology. And we actually did receive the funding for that particular funder.
I believe you.
You believe me?
Yes.
That's not true. No. One thing I deliberately did that. So, one thing, because I wanted to use this as a learning piece. One of the things that I always do is that when I'm doing an attachment, an email to a funder, I make
Mm-hmm.
a checklist of all the
Nice.
things that I'm supposed to attach to that thing, and I go through. I actually send it to myself first.
Mm-hmm.
And I make sure all the attachments are correct, and then I forward that email that I sent to myself, removing the forward to make sure that it's the correct attachment that I did.
I love that. Checklist is the way to go.
Yes.
We're about to come to the closing of our show. What does actually there's a comment I wanted to I didn't get a chance to read when it came up originally. Great information, great work, and program. Amazing.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you, what does the future look like for you?
We'll take over. I have a vision for the organization. As I said, even a vision for my life, and which is continuing to do work with youths, um,
Mm-hmm.
you know whether here in Canada, and across the world. And there's different paths to achieving that particular goal. In the same way, in my life, again, I was being trusted towards sort of medical school and to do child psychiatry, and I realized that I could actually do community development and work with children and youth and didn't have to go down that route. So really right now I'm constantly being recruited for different job opportunities. I have a very strong inclination for international development. And so whether I continue that work with BrAIDS for AIDS and really building out that platform across the world, there's some unique things coming out out of BrAIDS for AIDS, an app that will help to look at sustainability, look at environmental sustainability. We know as Black women, sometimes we purchase we purchase 5 packets of BrAIDS, but we use only 4, and then you can't carry it. You can't carry it back to the store to sell, so it ends up being in some box somewhere, or it's then thrown out. So creating an app that will look at environmental sustainability within the Black community around here. Looking at growing Frontlines both in Canada, in Toronto, then across Canada and across internationally is some of the sort of things that I'm working on. And if whatever it might be, really again focusing on that international development. I have interest in the UN, and so right now making my connections in the UN, so that could be something that I could explore later on in my life.
I love it. I love it, and I wish you much success. I know you'll do great.
Thank you.
For anyone who's trying to reach you, what's the best way they can contact you?
Absolutely. So LinkedIn is the best way to connect with me. Stachen Frederick, if you just Google my name, Stachen. There's only one like me. Very unique name. Actually, there's one person in the world thus far that I aware of in research that has my name, but Stachen Frederick. And so reach out to me. Happy to connect on LinkedIn and share my resources to people.
Amazing. It's been a pleasure having you today. You shared so much knowledge, so much gems. You shared your journey with us, and we really do appreciate that. So for everyone who's watching, if you enjoy this episode, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Stachen, thanks again for joining us. And bye, everyone. See you next week.
Bye. Take care.
If you enjoy our programming and want to help support Black entrepreneurship, please donate today. www.businesstakeout.com/donate.